Hi, this is the Social Jello with Angelo show. My name's Angelo. I'm a social scientist, surfer, martial artist, and a whole lot of other things. Coming to you live from Kasai City, Japan, the Social Jello with Angelo show.
What's up? And thank you for checking out Social Jello with Angelo. Today I interview Magdiel Rivera. Magdiel Rivera is a Kajukenbo practitioner and a black belt in Aiki Jiujitsu. And also, he messes around a lot of different types of stuff. I don't want to give away any surprises. It was a great interview. I hope you enjoy it. He does a little bit of a critical analysis of Kajukenbo, and he also wanted to make it very clear that he is not a Kajukenbo black belt. But I still put it in the Kajukenbo series because the conversation is very Kajukenbo oriented. I hope you enjoy the show, and here we go. So I'm here with Magdiel Rivera, and what's up, man? Thanks for being on the show.
Well, thank you for having me, bro. I'm happy to be here and being part of history. You're making history, my friend.
I wouldn't go that far, but I'm happy I'm able to do something. Better than sitting on my ass. That's what I say.
Well, you know, you're doing a lot more for the community than a lot of the people that should know better. You know, we have a lot of people, grandmaster, big belts, that are just too comfortable. You know, they're getting their tummy's getting big, and they're not doing anything. So I appreciate people that are approachable. You know, and I just want to say thank you for having me.
Ah, no problem. Thanks again for getting on the show and getting your plans together and making it happen. I appreciate that. So we were talking a little bit about a week ago about the show, getting it together, some topics you wanted to talk about. And one of the things you mentioned to me is you came from a few different martial arts backgrounds. And I kind of wanted to dive into that with you real quick. What martial art did you start off with?
Well, actually, you know, it's funny that you mentioned that because I started Kaijukenbo before it became Kajukenbo. Now everybody's really proud of being Kaijukenbo, but you know, I trained Kaijukenbo the old school way. I trained Kaijukenbo, you know, the old-fashioned way, and okay, there we go. We're having some connection. I started training Kaijukenbo around 94, 95. Old school Kaijukenbo. And, you know, it's funny because I trained from 94 to 01. And I was able just to accomplish a purple belt at that time. Why? Because at that time, you know, being a black belt, it was, in a way, it's irrelevant. But not getting your ass kicked, it was even more relevant, right? So, so that's so I started in the 1994 with with Sherry Ortega. I know that a couple weeks ago, you interviewed Nathaniel Ortega. So yes, so I trained a little bit with them, and then on 01, I came to the States, and then every year or every time I get a chance, I will go visit him and then I've just been doing a lot of cross training since I came to the States. I have cross training with Judo, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, and you know, it's been a pretty interesting journey just because you know when the only thing that you knew in Puerto Rico was oh my goodness, Kajukenbo is the best thing ever. Oh my God, you know, this is the environment that I was raised in the martial arts. I never practiced anything else because of, you know, financial situation and all that stuff. I cannot afford it until I went to college, right? So it was the best thing. It was the best thing ever, Kajukenbo. This is what you know. You breathe Kajukenbo. You know, at that time we were trained 4 or 5 times a week. We would get bloody. I don't know how you train your Kajukenbo, but back in the day, you know, that front kick will make those cups just clap. You know. I don't know we do this. I don't know we do that now, but back in the day, you would throw that front kick and you would just drop that front kick. And then not only that is that you better stay there when it's your turn to take that front kick.
Yeah, that's how you're supposed to do it. Not well. That's like I said, it's old school. I came from the same thing. So like, if you're listening for this, you come from another Kajukenbo school. You don't do it that way anymore. I'm not criticizing that, but yeah, that's how I was brought into it. So that's what I was used to. Our instructor used to do cup checks, and if you forgot to wear your cup, you were gonna get checked either way. We learned real quick. Don't forget your cup. And don't forget to put it on before class.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So for me, after I came to the state, I was able to cross in a little bit with Judo and Jiu Jitsu, and then mainly within the last couple of years, I've just been training mainly Aiki Jiujitsu and Escrima. And the fun fact is that I'm not a BJJ practitioner. I'm not saying that I like the ground, but it's funny. The way that I see jiu-jitsu is that you should be able to use it from any position. So it doesn't matter if you're standing. You should be able to have a good jiu-jitsu standing. If you're on the floor, use it. But I'm just a little sketchy or picky because I don't like the floor too much. I live in Phoenix, Arizona. It gets 100 degrees, 113. Going to the floor is that hot. I don't know. So I got I like grappling. I love grappling, but I have my questions when it's too hot and stuff like that. But
well, I mean, grappling on a mat and grappling on a sidewalk or asphalt are two complete different things, right?
yeah. So I have my share of fun with some of the BJ guys that you do BJJ, but I do dirty BJJ or dirty jiu-jitsu. I will pull your ear. I will, grab you by the nuts. Here I was talking to a friend of mine that he's an old BJJ guy, and BJJ is great, but they have lost. They're so commercialized that a lot of the old school compared to the new schoolers, a lot of things has changed. So let me put it that way.
It has. It's funny that you mentioned it because that's one of the things that, like, if you and I look, I'm not. Before we even go into this subject, look, I'm not criticizing BJJ. As it stands right now, I've been doing submission grappling for 3 years, only grappling, and 4, 5, no more. I've been doing submission grappling for 7 years now. I've been doing formal gi Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. For the last 2 years, I hold a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and then I've been started doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu through the Gracie Barra School. I started doing that about 15 years ago. I went into my first class. So, again, I'm not big on rank. I just train on it. But before we go in there, I just want to let you know that I love Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for the sport and the art that it is. But if you talk to some of the people that do, I mean, even in the last 15 years, I haven't been in it that long. I've only been in it for about 15 years, and I've seen a change. From when I walked in, it was very self-defense oriented. And a lot of the things were like, hey, if a guy punches you here, you block this way, you go that way. While as time went by, when I came back in Japan, I'm in Japan and went back to Gracie Barra in Japan. I feel like now the focus has become more sport, which, I mean, again, they had to do what they had to do for marketing, but it's become more sport, and they're really emphasized on the rules of the sport to win competitions and whatnot. And I guess the same can be said about even Kajukenbo, right? Like some Kajukenbo schools start focusing more on the point sparring, and it becomes more of a sport, and they kind of go away from the self-defense part of that system.
Yeah.
Just an analysis. Nothing. I'm not criticizing either approach, but
don't get me wrong. I will say that probably BJJ is one of the best, or maybe the best martial art out there. There's just some things that I not necessarily like, but I agree with you. They're probably one of the best. But I have other things. But going back to Kaijukenbo, right? Because that's what we're here for. So for me, lately, Kajukenbo means, you heard the term going back to the roots. A lot of people think about, Cjo, and don't get me wrong, Cjo is the founder of the system, but for me, going back to your root is not exactly going back to Cjo's teaching. It's going back to those kanji that means karate. That means that if your dojo is not strong in karate, just go to meet cross-train with a karate guy. Spend some time on working on the karate, and then if you're not strong in the judo part, take some time in cross and do some judo and jiu-jitsu, and then take some time and if you're not strong in Chinese boxing and boxing, put your time in the different art, because a lot of time you go to some of the schools, you only see one kanji or two expression of the art. What happened to the other ones? So when about going back to the roots, is that it's more well, without respect to everybody else, but that's how I foresee Kaijukenbo and going back to the roots. This is just my observation, because going back to the root, they always refer to CEO and his mentality. But for me, is going back to the roots is understanding each expression and be able to show it, to teach it, and understand it. Because the problem then too, not only we talk about what's going on with BJJ, but the other problem too is that lately, I don't know, here's a curveball. We have a lot of copy paste people. Copy paste, meaning there's no you see them working. There's no essence. There's nothing. There's no flavor. And you're looking. I'm like, you're a fourth or a second degree, and you look like a purple belt moving. There's no essence in what they're doing. There's no flavor. There's no. And I've been having a little bit of a hard time. Always sad in a way, because copy paste, you just learn the art of Kajukenbo, but Kajukenbo has a lot of concept in there. So I see a lot of people copy paste. They learn the system, and they keep working and teaching the same system 20 years ago. When there's a lot of information there that if you really look into it, and okay, you learn the technique, but what is the real concept behind the technique? That's what I'm talking about.
And it's interesting that you mention it, because I recently got shout out to GM Gary Forback. I recently got the complete original DVD series that was put together and approved by Cjo, and it's like 10 volumes of a bunch of techniques, like way more than I think I could way more than I've seen taught. That I've seen taught from maybe multiple schools, and it makes me realize that there was just so much covered even back then that has been lost into now because of whatever direction that people go into. And again, it's not criticizing it. I think that's the beautiful part about Kajukenbo, is that they don't lock you in to being one thing. But I mean, from there you do what you want to do. And for some people, maybe the easier route is just to keep doing the same thing they were already doing. Not criticizing that, that's just what they do. But I kind of want to go back in your story real quick. You were saying that you did Kajukenbo from 92, 93 to about early 2000s, 01. And then you came to the States and you started doing Judo. So I guess my first question, because people that listen to this podcast, not all of them do martial arts. Maybe if you've been following it, this might be the first one they ever heard of and they don't know what Kajukenbo is and it's a Hawaiian martial art, you should Google it. But if this is the kind of person that's just listening to it, doesn't really know martial arts that much, what was one of the differences you saw when you went into Judo, going from Kajukenbo into Judo? What were some of the big differences you saw between the two arts?
It's just that for me, I'm a grappler by nature. Okay, so I will pick you up and just slam you. Okay, I'm done. Let me just go home. I'm done. I like that mentality. Caveman mentality. Exchanging punches. I'm not gonna mess up this pretty face, bro. I will grab you. I will slam in the floor. and I walk away. I have a strong tendency with wrestling, so judo always came natural to me. Catch, wrestling. You know, back home in Puerto Rico, guess what? When you're growing up, it's not. You just go to the beach. There's nothing else. You spend the whole day hungry, drinking salt water and just wrestling and all days. You know, so you have that sense. You know, the that's why the island boys and people that go around the beach and stuff like that, their mentality is different. We spend the whole day without eating, just swimming and whatever. So the nicest thing for me is that I didn't see a lot of difference because I can adapt. Like throughout the year, I learned how to adapt my to judo, kempo, boxing, whatever. Is that understanding those concepts? If I'm sparring with you and you good kicking, I will start wrestling just to mess with you. If you are good, I take advantage of the style to pick on you, to see what you got, to in a good way. Because at the end of the day, sparring is just to get close to the real thing. So I always enjoy the mix and match. Pretend that you're going to grapple them and kick them. Pretend to kick, vice. It's all about that mental game when you are going to do the setup. So for me, it was interesting training to Kaijukenbo. Then start cross training with judo. I'm not a judo practitioner, and I'm not saying that I did horrible, but I did. You know, I didn't. I sucked, but I didn't suck as much, right? And I find out that the cross training just brought a little of my game up. And then what is funny is that the Japanese Jiu-Jitsu that I learned, I was able to use it on the floor. And like I said, I'm not saying that I'm an expert, but at least I can get myself out of a tight spot, right?
And kind of going back, I should have asked you this first. What originally made you want to start training in martial arts?
A good question. I think I never told nobody this, but I think you're gonna be I'm gonna be like the virgin to girl telling you the first one, how I started. So I remember I was like 5 years old. I was at church, and I sneak out, and there was a taekwondo a dojo. So I will sneak out of church and go to that place and just sit there, and then I was like, just. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. And then, my uncle, he's ex-military and all that. I started learning hand to hand. Oh, well, here we go. So I started learning hand-to-hand combat. So that jiu-jitsu is a little different from the sport. So I learned a little bit. I got mixed up with some people between junior high and high school, and I did a little bit of hand-to-hand combat. That actually it's like Fight Club. I never talked about this. Actually, I'm the first. You're the first person I'm telling you. I'm telling this that's how reserved I am. I did some hand-to-hand combat, and we do a lot of the training at the beach and stuff like that. That's really how my a grappling experience started with some military guys that, long story short, I learned what I learned and just applicable stuff.
Nice. And then you mentioned wrestling. Did you wrestle in high school?
Not in Puerto Rico. There's no wrestling.
There's no wrestling program. Oh yeah, no, Puerto Rico, man.
So guess what we doing at the break? We're still gonna wrestle.
Yeah.
we don't have an official program, but at lunch we will match and to play around and horse around and until somebody gets hurt or it's time to go back to class.
Cool. So you did you did some hand-to-hand combat with some military guys. And then you got into Kajukenbo. You did some judo.
and you found you were able to apply what you learned in Kajukenbo and the Judo. Once you went from Judo, how did you end up transitioning into Escrima? How'd that happen?
Well, here going back to how we talk about Brazilian and Kaijukenbo. Here's my question to you: who is in charge of your security?
I'm sorry. My security?
Yeah, who's
Okay.
in charge of your security?
My answer is I'm in charge of my own security.
Thank you. That is correct. So the way that I see it, Kaijukenbo is great. In within those 5 hours, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is great. Judo is great. Hand-to-hand combat is great. But there's an aspect that I'm going to bring to you now that a lot of people doesn't talk about it. Is knife is always meant to be felt. So I have this thing about doesn't matter where you go, you can get access to a knife. And the problem is that the way that I see it is that we put so much effort on the regular curriculum, and that's fine. Don't get me wrong, and all this stuff. But for the most time, you're gonna feel the knife before you can see it. So there was a point in my life, over 10 years ago, that I realized, Kajukenbo is great, Judo is great, all this stuff is great, but how I can deal, the same thing with Brazilian, how I can deal to at least, I can transition or at least run. So, so all this stuff got me always, my mind always running. I'm the guy that go eat, and I'll sit in a corner looking at the door, and just I'm in charge of my family security, right? I'm in charge of my family security, so I don't take my safety for granted. Okay, so yes, Kajukenbo is great, but the level of awareness, being the gray man, being able to okay, we practice all this stuff, but when we go out, are you checking your six? Are you checking your surroundings? I don't know, but here in the States, anything can go from 0 to 100 in no time. So I'm always try to be somewhat aware, just because my because here's my thought. I need to try to be somewhat ready all the time. So every time I go out, I'm like, I'm always I'm always checking, because the thing is, if I get hurt, I'm okay. But you know how much it's gonna suck that your spouse or your kid get hurt, and and all this stuff didn't help you. So that's why I started dealing with the knives, and the thing is, the screaming stick moves really quick, so it develops your eyes. So I admire you, that you put a lot of effort on what you do, and you put in the work. But I put the work on a little on the knife portion and the screaming portion, because the language of the knife is just a little different, my friend.
And what I was gonna say, the if you can, real quick, I forgot. I'm saying Escrima as if people know what it is. Would you mind telling my viewers and listeners what Escrima is, where it came from, and what it's? You're already kind of insinuating what the focus is on, but if you can kind of talk about what the style is all about, would you mind sharing with everyone?
Well, Well, a Filipino martial art, they call it Escrima, Kali, Baton, Escrima Baton, and Arnis. That pretty much the three main arts. The reality is, Escrima, Kali, and Arnis, it comes from the Spanish fencing. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you call it. We only have two hands, two legs. It doesn't matter how much you want to pimp it. There's so much that you can do. You have the asterisk and all that, and we all move pretty much the same. We just move. Some people move a little quicker than other, but the lines and movements, for the most part, everything's pretty much the same.
And how long have you been doing Escrima now?
I'm being I started with my guru Michael Butts from the Cuerdas Cada Anan. I start with him. Well, my goodness, 2013.
Alright.
2013.
So that's 7 years.
So I'm almost there in a decade. So my introduction to Escrima is grab a stick and go. That day, I finished my training. I looked like a freaking zebra, dude. All freaking head all over the place. But guess what? The mentality that I was taught in Caillou. Remember the old school, the hardest. I didn't back out. So at the end of the day, you know what? I don't know if that was a test or not, but I hung in there. I went home and I'm like, geez, dude, I look like a freaking zebra. That was my introduction to Escrima. My hands, they were like swollen a little bit because I got hit. I got hit on my hand and I didn't let go and, and stuff like that. So I don't know. I cannot talk about other people. I can just talk about myself. I train under Michael Bus, the Cuerdas Escrima. Let me backtrack. I work OKO with Jason Groff and Chief Dennis, and then I work with Kajukenbo Watu from Puerto Rico. I work with Sifu now, and let me talk to you about Sifu now. In a way, I didn't want to practice Caillou, to be honest with you, because in a way you're in a point that same old stuff in a way, right? Without respect, right? In a way, but this guy, the way that he brought Kajukenbo back to me, and don't get me wrong, I like Caillou, but in a way, I didn't want to commit to just anybody. You follow me? And not anybody. I don't want to follow just anybody. So I ended up, OKO is just a long story short. It just happened by happy accident. But for Iwatu, for Kajukenbo, Iwatu means warrior. So one of the things that he brings to what I needed is that throughout the years I become just lazy. I just become in a way the technical guy, right? Because I'm getting older. So this guy, his mentality, the way that he see things, helped me kind of go find my old self with the old school training. So he's still training the old school way, and then there's a lot of stuff that, yes, we're going to have techniques, but there's a lot of concept that if you learn concept, you can use it in karate, you can use it in judo, you can use it in boxing, or whatever. It doesn't matter, because if you have a concept, you can put it wherever you want. On the other hand, if you only learn a technique, you only have a technique. But if you have a concept, you have how many techniques? Tons of techniques. So just going back to a shout out to those guys, OKO, Kajukenbo Watu, and then of course my Escrima guys. It's been a pretty interesting journey in the Escrima portion, just because the stick is really quick. It's really hard to just address the stick. It's something that it's not bad or worse. A lot of people, they don't like the stick because, well, you're not going to be walking with a stick around here or whatever. I say, well, okay, that's your perception. But remember, a branch, a hammer.
Yeah, no, that's
you can use all that.
My what got me into Kajukenbo was I met a Kajukenbo guy, and that ended up becoming my Sifu, and I asked him, what's Kajukenbo? Because like at that point in my life, I read a lot about martial arts and I never heard of Kajukenbo. And he told me, you see that branch? You see that tree over there? I'm like, yeah. I could rip a branch off that tree and whoop your ass with it. and I started laughing. But then like I realized he wasn't joking around. Like he was serious. And so I went to go check it out, and his background, he also loved my Sifu loved Escrima as well. So like again, one of the things that I really love about Kajukenbo, and the Kajukenbo that I got in, that I was fortunate enough to start off with, was it goes off of that acronym we always talk about: the karate, the judo, the kempo kung fu, the boxing, kickboxing, and the jiu-jitsu. And what kind of happens also is if you have someone who's really connected to the roots of Kajukenbo, you'll end up with Escrima as well. In the self-defense, you're going to end up with stuff to how to use knife, how to use club, how to use a ratang, how to improvise for weapons. My instructor loved just multiple weapons, man. He'd always just tell us, pick a weapon, I'll show you how to use it. So like we had guys that loved knife, we had guys who loved clubs, we had guys who loved 3-sectional kung fu staff, which maybe in practicality doesn't seem practical, but to be able to learn how to make an object your own, I think is a really great skill to learn, so that then later, and I didn't even think about it at the time because all this stuff just comes at you when you're learning, right? Years later, I fast forward years later, and I was teaching a seminar out here in Japan. I was one of the guest instructors, and the other instructor was up to do some knife work. I've never worked with this instructor, and I've never done his knife work. It's his knife work. There are different techniques. I'm learning these new techniques. I don't know him. He's showing them. He loves knife. He comes from the Gaylord method. Shout out to Sifu John Hojlo. And either way, he's like, hey, can you work with this student? I'm like, all right, cool. And we're working with the student. I'm working with the student. They're his student. They're using the technique. And we do the drill. And she says, I just feel like you've been doing this technique so much longer than me, that you're always taking the knife away because of how much experience you have with this technique. And I said, I'll be honest with you, I just learned this technique with you just now. Like, it's not like this is something new to me. But you're right, my past experiences have accumulated so that when I learn something new, it's new for maybe a few seconds, but it's very familiar, if you know what I mean. And I think that's one of the things that Kajukenbo really does, which I'm really grateful for. You can walk into a place like you did. You walked into a judo place, and you're a white belt, but you're not exactly a white belt. You're not the guy who's like running around, doesn't know how to line up, doesn't know where to be, doesn't know how to bow, doesn't know how to show respect. Like, you kind of come in with this like fundamental base to not look like a complete fish out of water when you walk into a place, which is really cool.
And those BJJ guys, they're no joke. They're no joke.
No.
They're no joke. So for me, it's been I've been in a journey to refining myself in a way, just because here in the state, you probably know this, we work a lot, and I struggle to make time for my kids, family, to work out. And now, honestly, I'm making a point. Like, for example, going back to we were talking about. Well, I'm working. I'm getting good, so I'm good, and I want to work the technical aspect. But I realize who I'm fooling, dude. I'm gonna gas out in 5 seconds if you know what I mean. So I'm like, you know what? I need to. I got a wake up call. I said, dude, you need to start working on your cardio. I look at this yellow guy, man. He is working. And don't get me wrong. I have to get close to people that are better than me or are an inspiration to me, because here I'm always. I'm on my own, I make time to train, but sometimes, most of the time, I'm just here at the house, just because, not every day I can go to the dojo, so I can train. I try to be friends that will help me bring my game up, So I saw you. I don't even know how I saw one of those. Somehow. So I don't know how I find you. I just saw you through one of those Kaijukenbo links, and I'm like, look at this guy. He's working it. And the thing is that it's great to see people working, because you have a lot of this guys that are they are the hot shot, whatever they want to call it. but I don't see them working for their status. I appreciate what you do because I'm like, man, I'm like, if I go in a fight with Jello, I'm like, I'm gonna have to run by the nuts quick or something, because if not, he's just gonna, you know what I mean? So that's my, so I have to get close to people that will make me better. So that's how sometimes I end up, sending you a friend request. That's how I'm in touch with Kajukenbo. That's why I'm in touch with Escrima, Michael Buzz, OKO. There's a lot of grappling. So for me, here's another curveball. I don't. All these people are so proud of their lineage and all that, but my point is, instead of being proud of your lineage and always making a big deal of the differences, learn from each other and use it. That's my philosophy. So at the end of the day, out there they don't care about nothing like that. So I see Kaijukenbo. Honestly, all my friends, mainly friends, are Kaijukenbo guys. And I love the mentality. I don't agree with some of them. It's okay. We can agree to disagree, right? But what? But I got this. Everybody's so caught up on their title or organization and all that stuff, and I'm like, dude, just remember, at the end of the day, you're gonna be on your own, and nobody's gonna be there to. There's not gonna be the organization, whatever you belong to. Nobody's gonna be there. Your rank. It's not gonna matter. If it's a knife, it's gonna go through you like everybody else. You're just a mortal like everybody else. So for me, remember, I have my Aiki background, all that, and then the judo and judo and all that stuff. I use all that to blend, but I just, and I respect each organization, all that, but you should use all the different technique or mentality to learn from each other. So, for example, let me give you what I just mentioned. For me, I suck at cardio, right? Because sometimes the American way, you want to eat and just want to eat all the time. So
Some
if I
good
want to
food, though. There's some good food over there, though.
exactly. So for me, I realized that I need to start. Back in the day, I could run 4 miles and like nothing, and then go to the gym and then go to class. You know what I mean? But now I'm like, gosh, dude, what happened to the Judo days? You know what I mean? What
Yeah.
happened to that?
Yeah, I mean, like I was talking to you about how like it's really good that you have that bag there. I think really, I mean, one of the things I don't mention in the video is that gym that I'm working at, that is my garage. That's not. I'm not going. And the reason it's there is because I couldn't. Just like everybody else, I have a family, I have a baby girl, I got a full time job. I wish my full time job was martial arts, but it's not. So like, yeah, having that home gym really helps out with that.
So the thing is that here's what I will tell you, and this is one of the conversations that I would have with my seafood wheel now. I said, everybody wants to be the tough guy, but nobody's putting the work. And you know what? At the end of the day, you're gonna ask your body to do something that it's not used to. So guess what? Yeah, it's great that you are whatever, but you're gonna ask your body to do something that it's not used to. So you better be ready. So that's why. Guess what? That's why I'm trying to work on being ready because it's gonna be a sad day when and when you think you have something and you just realize that you got your butt handled. So
Yeah, and that's a horrible way to find out too. So my one of the questions before I close up, I wanted to ask you a little bit about Aiki Jiujitsu. I don't know a whole lot about it. I've read about it. I saw a Japanese movie about it that had it was based on it was based off a true story. I don't know how true the story was, but the original story was about a American. They changed the character in the movie to a Japanese character, but the actual original story was an American who came to Japan who was in a wheelchair, and he ended up learning Aiki Jiujitsu as to defend himself, and he was one of the first people that were what's the word I'm looking what's the PC term I'm looking for? Handy abled, I guess would be the word. And but yeah, he was in a wheelchair and he learned Aiki Jiu-Jitsu. But that's all I know from it. From the movie, I can only imagine they embellished some stuff. So can you kind of in your best in your layman's terms, like for someone who doesn't know, what's it all about?
Well, what it is well, let's talk about Aikido. Aikido come from Aiki Jiujitsu. So, long story short, what's the name of the founder of Aikido? He almost got put in Yale because he used Aiki Jiujitsu, Morelu Busheva, something like that.
I think so.
So he was an Aiki Jiujitsu guy. The art was so badass that the judge had told him, you need to change your way. And that's how Aikido came to be. So going back to Aikido, or Aiki Jiu-Jitsu, actually, that's the main focus. There's a lot of mixed feelings with all that. I'm going to tell you my personal experience with Aiki. Aiki is just it's a flow. It's for me, Aiki had become like meditating, you moving in a meditative state. Your Aiki is just something that I see it as like I can see it like a Tai Chi, something soft. But it's funny. My Aiki is different because, well, I make my stuff work. That's really what I'm trying to say. Aiki Jiu-Jitsu is just a combination of a lot of standing locks and a lot of the tamis and stuff like that. It's complex just narrow it down. So the only thing that I can tell you about the Aiki that I study is just that the way it's been taught to me, and I didn't want to touch the subject, but you have to bring in the lineage that I'm working with. We work a lot with Ryuha, what they call Ryuha. There's a lot of mental aspect, guerrilla warfare, and stuff like that. It's complex. When you talk about Aiki, or at least in my line, is really deep. This is the most obscure part of me because people see me and they're like, specifically my Caillou guys. They go like, the Aiki that I study is it has some background on Bagua and some Chinese. The only thing that I can tell you about my Aiki is that the name of this art, they call it Kasara Ryu, a windstorm art. Going back to the concept, you just move with wind, right? You just move with the wind. That's the name of the art. So back in the day, guess what the monk would do? Was sit in the forest and they would study the wind, right? So guess what the Hawaiian did? They studied the water. So that's why how the Lua came to be. They studied the water and how the water break and all movements, and all this movement just came from studying the water, the wind. So the Japanese people, at least in Japan, a lot of these people a long time ago, they did have time. Not like today, right? So they have time to study the wind. People in the island, they study the water. There were some katas that were that it wasn't very because of the volcano. So they would be like this. They were smoking and they would go. There's a lot of history with the Caillou and how some of those katas were said, and the same with the Japanese. A lot of this stuff. The way it was taught to me is that a lot of the monks, they will have time just to sit together and just try out the stuff. So of course, what they did back in the day, only this will have a portion of the art. So let's say that the monks were have 5 arts. They were only teaching karate and so, but then they were not teaching the other 3, and so and so. So the Aiki that I study is a mix of what happened between Japan and China and monk. And long story short, my Aiki has changed and have evolved. I do Aiki, but then I work with circles and line, meaning that I can do the big movements and I can do small movements. It just depends on how I want to manipulate the body. So the biggest influence is being able to actually use Aiki movements and concept and move like a wing. I'm a heavy guy. I'm over 200 pounds, and people me like, ooh, dude, really? Of course, I've got solid 5 seconds, but hey, at least I live for the 5 seconds. I look okay.
Hey, the most important part of the fight is the first 5 seconds. If you can handle it then you'll handle the rest.
Yeah. So so like you mentioned, I talk about Aiki Jiu-Jitsu. A lot of people that don't understand, so they call it Aikido. I said, so let me put it this way: my Aikido, right? Let's call it Aikido. I can make it work in sparring. I and then here's the best part. I have blend my Aiki Jiu-Jitsu to my Escrima. So my game. So I don't say that I have a good game, but I say that going back to concept, I'm being able to use my Aiki concept, because my Aiki concept, they were taught as a technique. I grasped the concept. So now I do Escrima and I do Caillou, and I using all those concepts against all these guys, and they look at me like, you did something there that I didn't understand, and I would touch you in a particular way that your mind would go like, huh? What? So, things like that you will have to be there to see it, because I have done it. That I was sparring and I touch in a particular way, your mind goes somewhere else, and it's fun, being able to use it in sparring and regular sparring, and then a Escrima. So it's interesting how I blend what I just mentioned, concepts, and now bring all those concepts to Caillou is even a fun factor, just because going back to Caillou, CU's dad, stepdad, it was an escrimador, and a lot of the punch counters that you see there, it has a lot of hidden flavor that only a person that have a different point of view will be able to explain them. And that's the thing that's why I decided to, in a way, go back to Caillou as well, because a lot of this, my Aiki Jiu-Jitsu school is not as flexible. The old mentality, you know, hardcore and but Caillou, I always like the mentality. I like the philosophy, and mainly the people. I always have find a good chemistry with the Caillou guy. I don't know why, because you guys are sometimes but I can connect with you guys somehow. So in a way, I feel like I'm more Caillou than some of these guys, because I know a lot about history. I can break a Caillou technique down, and then you tell me how you want me to do it to you within the 5 different kanjis, right? Karate, Judo, Jiu Jitsu, whatever.
And then, like you mentioned before, and for those, like I said, I came across Aiki Jiu-Jitsu first in the movie, and then second on a research paper that I wrote. And it wasn't like a deep research paper. It was just like a meta-analysis. I read a bunch of different papers on the history of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I quote a bunch of people that I found on this database. There's some much better research out there. To my listeners, a big disclaimer. I would start with looking up at Stephen Kesting's work on some people he's interviewed. And there's a documentary coming out sometime this year, and I forgot the name of the person who's releasing the documentary. But there is a documentary coming out that does a much better job than what I did. But when I was writing that paper, Aiki Jiujitsu came up as historically on the timeline before Aikido, which came on the timeline before Judo, which a lot of people don't know. That Judo and Aikido, Judo is actually a relatively newer martial art. It came around, they really didn't standardize it till the 1930s. And then it changed some more in the 80s. They changed the rules and they don't allow any attacks to the legs anymore. That started in the 80s. So the Judo you see right now is different from the Judo you would see pre-1980, which is even different from the Judo that was not Judo, because the Judo wasn't established as Judo till 1930s. So like you keep going back and you find Aiki Jiujitsu a little bit over here. And Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is like over here on that timeline.
Just to go back, the Brazilian, they didn't do nothing new. Okay? They didn't do nothing new. They just improve it. They just improve it. So kudos to them because they improved the ground game. But the Japanese, it wasn't because the Japanese went to Brazil. Well, they probably will be doing capoeira. They still will be doing capoeira. You know, and it wasn't for Japanese went to Brazil. Yeah. So kudos to those guys. But Judo back then, they had a ground game.
Yeah.
You know, they had all this kasagatami and all kisagatami and on all that stuff, arm bars and all that. It's just that, you know, the way that, they express the ground game is awesome. And then how, well, you know, just in Brazilian, there's a long history there. Judo is a long story there. You know, everywhere you look, there's a lot of history for. Well, I like history, and the thing is that at the end of the day, here's what I will tell you, is that a lot of, and I'm sorry, I think some people are gonna get butthurt right now, and sorry guys, I love Caillou, but I'm gonna use Caillou because this is the subject that we're talking about. At the end of the day, some people they blame the art because they get into mud hammer. Well, Kaijukenbo doesn't work anymore. I said, well, dude, you know, I get it that in 1942, when all these guys put this together, it's just because they want to be the white man. They want to be the white man, you know, because, you know, so a lot of things have to, you know, they have to fight those sailors, you know, those big old white boys, they want to fight the white man, you know. That, you know, Kajukenbo was put together because of that, because to fight the sailors, the white man, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of stuff that has been done, but at the end of the day, bro, it's on you, bro. Yeah, it's on you. You know, it's like an analogy that I got from somebody some time ago. Is that they were comparing a Wing Chun guy, you know, Wing Chun, you know, IP man. Oh my goodness, it's like, you know, it's just. and don't get me wrong, it's great, but they were comparing a Wing Chun guy versus a boxing guy, right? Because it's a kung fu boxing versus a regular boxing. So here's my thought. A lot of us, we just go to class 1 or 2 hours, 3 times a week, average, right? Give or take, for any practitioner, right? In this case, we're using the Wing Chun guy, but the boxer wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. He goes run 5, 6, 7 miles. Then in the afternoon he goes to the gym and gets hit in the face. He's not there for the rank and all that. And then a lot of us, we go to a dojo for 2 or 3 hours a week. and we have this sense of security. I look so good in this technique today, bro. I'm pumped. I'm pumped. But dude, do you think I really have a chance with a boxer? That the boxer is not concerned about getting hit in the face. The boxer is not concerned about getting hit in the body. And some of this guy that as soon as you hit them in the face, they lose control. They don't know what to do. Oh my God, you know what I mean? So it's all about your mindset and mentality. What you put it in, what you put it in is really what you're gonna get back. So sometimes things have changing, and we are becoming softer, and it's okay. But don't fool yourself, dude. So going back to the Wing Chun guy, so a guy that practiced 1 hour, 2 hour per 3 times a week versus a boxer. Boxer's going to take him any day, and vice versa. If the Wing Chun person guy is just putting the time, he can go the other way. But at the end of the day, how much you putting in?
So you're going back to a really good topic that I've mentioned before. That I mentioned this with my students. That style, your individual strength, is what's going to be your rocket. Stephen Kesting, a guy I had on my podcast, he had a really good analogy. He said you can learn techniques, and techniques that come from a style, whatever style it is like the warhead on a missile. But what propels that missile is your rocket, and that's you, right? That's you. And how do you make that rocket faster? You put in the work. You put in the work, and then the rest follows. So yeah, that's a really good analogy that you mentioned there about putting in the work. And I know some people talk about, I don't know, I've heard some people say, Kajukenbo, they haven't heard of it, or the ones that do have heard of it sometimes will criticize that, it's gotten softer or harder. But I'd like to say that it just depends on what school you're talking about and what their goals are. One thing I've been really surprised on when I started this whole project was learning and meeting and finding out that Kajukenbo doesn't advertise that much. So we're involved in a lot of shit. Like a lot of people, a lot of big fighters. We've been there to train them, but we don't name drop. So no one ever finds out that we were even there.
Yeah. So, fun fact, talking about Caillou, I want to pause really quick. That one thing that I want to go back to you talking about, and I agree, is that it's funny. And back home in Puerto Rico, the Kajukenbo community mainly has been in the West Side. I don't know why, but a fun fact, I don't know if a lot of people will know that, but the Kajukenbo community always been really big on the West Side. I don't know if it's a coincidence, but in the West Side, there's a lot of Kajukenbo guys. A lot of the recruiting for armed forces is in the West Side of the island, and there's a lot of, for whatever might be the reason. So it's just a fun fact for people that they don't know about that. And then going back to Caillou, I think we're in a point that we have new people. I saw Mikey Lopez working, and I saw his Panatukan, and I'm like, it's nice to see people that Panatukan is the Filipino boxing. He brought that. He mixed it with his stuff, and that's the thing that I like to see. That you use the Filipino boxing using with the Kajukenbo. That's money right there. You see what I'm saying? Because you should be able to, what I call mix and match, meaning you should be able to pick from the different kanjis from your art and make them work. And then, so it's good. It's good. I like I said, I only follow. I'm really picky to who I follow, who I friend request. If you notice, I'm really reserved. Everything has a purpose. So I try to look into guys that have something to offer to me. I'm in the shadows, to be honest with you. I'm always a student. I'm always a student. I'm always, everywhere I go. If you look at my pictures, I wear a white belt. That's what you're gonna wear. I said, yeah, I'm a white belt. I'm a white belt. And then, they threw a arm lock or an arm bar, and I escape, and they go like, huh? What is that? I said, no, don't worry about it. I got lucky. So the funny thing for me, fun fact that I will disclose here, is that in BJJ, they will give you a kimura for a year, right? Then, correct me if I'm incorrect, one kimura per year, right?
It depends on the school, but essentially what you're touching on is the idea that in BJJ you pretty much only learn one set of techniques for years. You'll spend your first 3 months in just pretty much one position, like learning one,
where I'm
not even a kimura. Like you'll be learning closed guard for most of your first year there, which is, for those that are listening, it's just you on your back closing your legs. That's what they're pretty much. They'll focus on one thing. Yeah, pretty much.
Exactly. So explain. So I will say this, and I will share this with you. You have to wait all the way to black belt to start learning to escape. I only can tell you, I'm not a BJJ guy, but I can skate.
Yeah, again, going off of the differences between, and again, I still have a hard time, and I've talked to, that's why I've had that conversation. We're almost out of time here, but on my last number 72, if you want to check out the last episode, I just released it yesterday. We talk about what is Kajukenbo, and what's the curriculum. And when you start looking at it, you start realizing it's almost hard to say it's a style. I would say it's more of a philosophy. But yeah, I think that's what you're touching on. Well, Magdiel, we are almost done. But before I wrap up, I'm going to ask you a question that I ask a lot of people that come on the show. If I'm someone who's never done any martial arts ever, and I'm looking for a place to train, where would you recommend this kind of a person to start?
Honestly, the first thing that there's something in your guts that it will tell you. So just whatever's close to you, go to that place in your guts. You're really deep in your guts is going to tell you what this is for you or not. Because the thing is that, let's be honest, BJJ is not for everybody. Karate is not for everybody. Sambo is not for everybody. So you have to find your happy place, because at the end of the day, and probably as a closing today, we have talked so many subjects and get out of line or whatever. We have touched so many aspects of this to enjoy what you do. So if you just enjoy your punch, enjoy the process, enjoy yourself, because at the end of the day, dude, this is something that we have to manage stress. And real talk, it doesn't matter what you're training. We have to cope with being normal, because being normal is a perception. We have to cope with being functional. And functional can have a different meaning for a lot of us. And you are a smart guy. You're a master's degree in psychology. You know where I'm going to, right? So what are you doing to stay functional? We are guys. We're here. There's something different, specifically for people that train martial art, that is different. The psychology, the chemistry is different. There's that we turn it on and off We turn it on and off depending on what we're doing. And that's what we all need to do. Doesn't matter what you do. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. You like Boy Scout, just do enjoy the process and grow from it. But at the end of the day, you have to function. This, for me, martial art helped me cope, look normal, look functional, and blend. I'm saying a lot without saying much, right?
I think that's good. I think that's a good way I think that's a good message. So for those of you listening, follow your gut. Follow something that helps you reduce stress, because at the end of the day, I'll add on to it, stress will fucking kill you. so definitely find something that'll help you with those things. Magdiel, thank you very much for being on the show. For my listeners, go ahead and stay tuned for the wrap up, and I'll catch you all later.
Thank you for having me, sir. Talk to you later.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for checking out Social Jello with Angelo. Please subscribe to the show. Lots of stuff coming up right now. I know things are tough for everyone, but if you can subscribe to the show, I really appreciate it. It costs you nothing and means the world to me. I'm going to keep pumping out these podcasts along with a few more training videos for those of you who might be interested in what I'm doing at my gym here in Japan. All right, well, catch you all later. Peace.